Welcome to our show, Snow.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor of inviting me on your show.
We're excited to have you, and I want to let our listeners know today that you are one of the co-founders of the Pacific Northwest Protectors here on Vancouver Island.
Right, yeah, we're on San Juan Island, which is
Okay,
just like
awesome.
right across the way, but as far as the orca swims, I mean, it's so close that we can see the island.
Yeah, great. So you told me earlier you're a free diver.
Mhm.
And can you let me know a little bit, let us know like what brought you into free diving? What was your path that brought you there?
Well, I was, my parents really wanted my family, my brothers and sister and I, to all know how to swim. And so just as little kids, we were on swim team, and that kind of oozed into breath holding and kind of pretending I was basically an orca as a little kid.
Okay.
And then I think it was I don't know, I was pretty young, but I saw this movie called The Big Blue, Le Grand Bleu. I don't know
Uh-huh.
if you've seen it. Yeah.
Yes.
And I was emblazoned. I watched that movie and I was like, whatever that is, I want to go. That's everything to me. And so I became a scuba instructor and I taught scuba diving for a Japanese company, but on all my days off, I would free dive and I wouldn't bring tanks and I would just go down and hold my breath. And it was on those experiences where that's where the animals would come to me. That's when the dolphins would swim to me. That's when I would have the interactions because the sound of the bubbles wasn't maybe as foreign
Uh-huh.
sounding. And it was just magic. And I just felt like, I mean, every time I'm underwater, I feel like I'm home. And the interactions they feel hallowed and sacred and really precious to me. So it's kind of been a lifelong thing all around the world, but orcas have always been my passion. And so I
Yeah.
moved to the Salish Sea so that I could be closer to the orcas, both species of the orcas, the big orcas that are mammal eating, and then the southern resident orcas that are fish eating. So that's a
That's
nutshell.
yeah, and then just tell us a little bit like where were you doing your free diving? Like when you were an instructor, were you in Japan or where were you doing these things?
I was actually in the Mariana Islands. I was on a tiny island called Guam, and then I spent time in Tinian and Rota. So all these tiny little islands. And then I spent a lot of time in Hawaii. And so
Okay.
those are the two big spots, and then a great deal of scuba diving throughout the West Indies and the Caribbean.
And then what brought you to like, because I mean, I'm originally from Miami, so I'm used to
Oh,
like the warmer waters. And where we are now, I feel like they're very cold waters here. So how did you make that transition to that moving out of warm to the really cold?
well, unfortunately, growing up in Colorado, I learned how to swim in cold lakes.
Okay.
And
Wait, where are you from Colorado?
I'm from my mother lives in Fort Collins, and my father, he for a while lived in a tiny mountain town called Ridgeway.
Okay, I also grew up in Fort Collins.
What?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a tiny world.
I know. Wow, cool.
I love that.
Yeah, so you have part of your life was growing up in Colorado.
Yep. And then when I was in Colorado, I was studying as much as I could the orcas. And I always heard this word about the Puget Sound. And
Okay.
it was kind of my goal was I've got to get there. And once I got here and the first time I free dived in these cold waters, the cold was kind of canceled out with the magic because it's just such incredibly beautiful water here. The color is different all different times of the year, from jade to celadon to aquamarine. And I don't know, it casts a spell over you. And the cold is kind of like, it almost intensifies the magic of it, if that makes any sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like irrelevant, the cold. It's like, well, whatever. It's orca waters. So of course
Yeah.
it's cold.
Yeah. Great. And so you did all this scuba diving, and on your free time, you were doing free diving. And then at what point did you come back, or were you living on the San Juan Islands? Like, what brought you to the San Juan Islands, and eventually to what you're doing now, which is protecting the orcas now?
Well, my husband and I, we left Hawaii, and we knew that we needed to save up to buy a little cabin so that we could move up to the San Juan Islands. So we spent some time in California, and we were freediving in Monterey throughout that time to keep us happy. And we just saved every penny and every dime that we could so that we could move up here. And then finally we just were like, okay, we can't wait anymore. We have to get up there. And it was before I even knew how dire the situation is for the southern resident orcas. I
Yeah.
wasn't cognizant yet of how close to the brink that they are when we moved here. It was just a slow unfurling that I figured that out. But yeah, so that's how we got up here, was we just saved up and came up.
Yeah. And so now you're living in a cabin. That sounds very romantic. And
Oh,
and also it's such so beautiful out here. Um, so you told me earlier that you and your husband noticed less and less self-resident orcas and decided on your own to start looking into that to see what was going on.
yeah, that's exactly right. Yes. It was it was pretty it was harrowing. It was heart-wrenching because there was such a small amount of orcas anyways in the small population of these really special, interesting orcas that are specific fish-eating orcas. And of that, they specifically eat Chinook or king salmon. So it's like this subgroup of orcas that are very genetically different from all other orcas. And there's something really special about them when you see them from a boat or for the land. But what we had the amazing experience was one time we were freediving in the kelp forest on the west side of San Juan Island, and all of J-Pod, which is one of the groups of the southern residents, they all swam by us. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a divine experience. I don't know if it was just, I
Yeah.
don't really know if there's such a thing as coincidence, but I remember my husband was like, whoa, look at that huge black sail. And it was actually an orca's fin. It was its dorsal
Wow.
fin. And when your eyes are on the surface of the water and you're looking at one of those fins, it's just gigantic. But then there was no fear. It filled the ocean and the water and the kelp forest with just this incredible peace. And the water was just humming with their goodness. And I have no other way to say it other than it was just, okay, I want to do everything in my existence to protect you guys. And I mean, neither of us slept that night. We were just like, oh my gosh, we were in the water with so many orcas. I think it was like 23 orcas in the
Wow.
water with us. And just there was no rancor or malice. It was just kindness and goodness. And these are orcas that if they wanted to be vindictive, they really could be. And they have a lot of reasons to maybe
Yeah.
not feel good about humanity, the din of the noise that we create in their oceans. We've created these dams which have made it almost impossible for them to find the salmon they need to survive. We've overfished, we've polluted their waters, we've caught their parents, we've killed them, we've put them in tanks all over the world. And yet, despite all that, there wasn't an ounce of any unkindness. It was just pure, almost ethereal energy. And I don't know, it was like,
I totally get it. Like I totally can feel what you're saying, and I kind of feel sad. Like I feel sad that, I mean, it's great they have such this sweetness about them, because I just feel that we are, as humanity, I just really feel disenchanted with us lately, like just not happy with us at all, you know? And
yeah,
so hearing that, it's like, wow, it kind of hurts my heart. Like, wow, I can't believe they still have that in them. And then it's so great that you had that experience and just were like, okay, we're gonna do what we can to protect them. You know, like, how did you start that? Because how did you even create awareness about it? And my question also, I'm asking you a lot of questions, but answer whichever one you want. I'm also kind of shocked that no one else brought it up, or were people bringing it up and being ignored?
yes, that is it. So there is this amazing group of people that just dearly love these orcas. There's There's scientists whom I really admire. There's Ken Balcom, who's been studying these orcas for like 40 years. There's Dr. Deborah Giles, and she's been studying these orcas. There is Joe Gatos, and he founded Sea Doc Society. He cares for these orcas. So you have all these scientists that are finding all these facts about them, and they're not being really very listened to by the elected officials. And then you have whale watchers, and you have boat captains who dearly love these orcas, who are protecting them in their own way by spreading awareness about them. And then you just have artists, photographers, storytellers who also love them. But it's kind of like when you're alone and you're singing or speaking about something you care about deeply, it can maybe reach just a very small amount of people. But when we all bring that together and we kind of broadcast it together, it can reach more people. And that's what my husband and I kind of looked at. We need to be the middle person. We need to create a way to speak to the scientists, amass the facts, and then share the facts with the public to empower the public with the truth. And then let's reach out to the elected officials. Let's go to the governors. Let's go to the prime ministers. Let's, on both sides, in Canada and the US, and let's start speaking out against what is happening and speak up for these whales that have no human voice, but we do. And so kind of working like a pod. And so we were winging it. We did not know what to do. We didn't know how to start, but we were like, well, let's start somewhere, because I can't let another day go by without standing up for these beings. And so we just kind of like little by little created little posts and met more amazing people and spoke to more awesome scientists and learned more facts. And then these two incredible documentary teams just came to the island at the same time. And one is out of Canada, and it's Co-Extinction Film, and it's Gloria Pancrazi and Elena. They are both creating that documentary that tells the story of the southern resident killer whales. And then Alexandra Morton and then Maria, and then with, I just lost her name, Maisie Williams, who is an actress, they all co-founded another documentary called Searching for Chinook. And both of these crews, they both came to the island at the same time to film the orcas and just start creating a story. And then at the same time, I think we all know the orca named Tahlequah J35, who lost her calf, and she carried her deceased calf on her rostrum for like 17 days over a mile. I think it was 10,000 miles or something, but it was in the news. I don't know if you remember that story.
No, wow.
Yeah, she was in the news in Australia and in Spain, and everyone was like, whoa, wait, what's happening with this orca? Why is she carrying her dead calf for so long? And it coincided with these two documentary crews being on the island filming it. And then there was another orca who was ailing. She was starving to death, and that was put in the news also. And so it kind of, they all combined together. And then let me backtrack really quick. So I don't know if I said the name wrong. It's Alexandra Johnson. I think I said Alexandra Morton. And Alexandra Morton is another phenomenal, she's an orca scientist and she's a marine biologist. And it's Alexandra Johnson. She's the one who is the co-founder for Searching for Chinook, that documentary. So I said that wrong. I jumbled it.
That's fine. Yeah. I mean, we can put all the details somewhere, and people can do some more research and find out more about all of this stuff that you're telling us about through different links. We can put that up, no problem.
Oh, just being human, so full of mistakes. It's hilarious. But yeah, so we kind of all three became a pod together because they were trying to tell the story and we were trying to share the facts. And that's kind of how PNW Protectors that's how we kind of found our rhythm, I guess, was working with these two phenomenal teams, Co-Extinction and Searching for Chinook. So that was kind of the beginning. I'd say.
Yeah. And so people that want to see those films, how can we see those?
They're forthcoming. So they're both, they're still in production, and everything's been a little delayed just because of COVID-19. But
Yeah.
they should be coming out, I would hope, in 2020. If that's the goal.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I noticed, so I feel like once you start looking and digging, there's like always some more and more revealing like why this is happening to the South resident orcas, like about the Chinook, right? And then there's less Chinook because of the dams. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And then there's the herring, and so I was like digging around a little more, and I was like, oh well, I didn't know the role that the herring played as well.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's just so connected. And then can you just tell us a little bit about that so people get a full picture on what's going on with herring, salmon, and orcas?
Absolutely. So if you look at an ecosystem, it's a whole circle. And so when you start out from the very bottom of where, okay, so there's the phytoplankton, and it's like the building blocks of the whole ocean. And then the herring come in and they eat the little critters that live off of the phytoplankton. And the herring are they're a real keystone species for everything. They feed humpbacks, they feed the young juvenile smolt salmon, they feed eagles, they feed bears, they feed wolves. They kind of feed everybody, and they have been overfished immensely. And
Yeah.
then you move over to the next, so you have the salmon, and there's different species of salmon, but the species we focus a lot on is the king or the Chinook salmon.
Yeah.
And their numbers are declining exceedingly because of there's these 4 lower Snake River dams on the Columbia River, and these dams actually kill 8 million salmon every single year, and they're preventing the adult salmon from being able to swim up and spawn. And so you have these two really drastic things happening at the same time. The young ones that live are being killed, and the adults cannot spawn, and that happens for 30, 40 years, and you're looking at a total collapse of the entire species, and they're on the verge of extinction. And then with the overfishing, and then you add in the estuaries where the young salmon live, those have been depleted, and they're because of pollution. And it's just been really difficult for such a keystone species of salmon to find a way. And the salmon, they sustain the pinnipeds, which are the sea lions and the seals. And then the
Yeah.
sea lions and seals sustain one of the groups of orcas called the Biggs orcas that are mammal eating. And then the salmon sustain the southern resident orcas. So
Okay. Yeah.
everything is connected. And when you remove even one species from the food, the whole web collapses, because everyone needs everyone to be able to function correctly. If you remove the pinnipeds, the seals and the sea lions from the equation, then there's these fish called the hake fish, and the hake fish swim in and they end up eating all the young salmon. And then that's less salmon for the orcas. So it's like every single being plays an integral, very intrinsic role in the health of the whole ecosystem. And
And
that's
we're messing it up.
well, we're on the verge of it collapsing, or humanity working together, and there's still time. There's like, if we work together and get the word out, we could totally swoop in, and we could save the day. It's just
Yeah. And
igniting that passion with enough
yeah,
people.
and yeah, people need to know about this. And then like the dams, there was a march to breach the dams, because if I understand correctly, these dams aren't really even being used right now for electricity, or maybe only a couple of them are, or something about them not really being used right now. Is that correct?
Well, they're being used, and they are being used for electricity, but they are obsolete, and there's alternative ways to provide the power and the electricity that those dams are currently providing, because irrigation is important for the farmers that they need for their wheat crops, and there's alternatives for that. And then there's barge system, and that could move to rail. So there's all these different ways that they could work with kind of this obsolete system that's in place with the 4 lower Snake River dams. And the biggest thing is that those dams, just to keep them operating, they are losing vast amounts of money every year, like hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And BPA, which is Bonneville Power Association, they have been trying desperately to keep these dams operational, but they are losing so much money, upwards in the billions. And so there's government subsidies, and they're helping these dams to remain operational, but it's at the expense of 2 species are going extinct, and they're not really that necessary. There are alternatives that we could put into place if we all work together. And so it's more looking at, do we really need to have these dams? These dams have destroyed an ecosystem. They've drastically affected First Nations and Native Americans' fishing grounds, because these were really important places for fishing salmon to First Nations and tribal people who lived in eastern Washington. So there's a lot of different facets to look at it from an environmental standpoint, from a humanitarian standpoint, and from an economic standpoint. These dams they're no longer viable, and they need to be breached. And even that word breaching, it's a different word than raising, in that it's simply digging a ditch around the pre-existing dam, which would take like a very small amount of time to breach them. And in doing that, it would save 2 species from extinction.
Right. And so the reason they're not doing it is mainly political reasons. Is that what's keeping them? Because if I
Exactly.
understand, when I've read things, it sounds like it's cheaper to breach than to maintain them every year.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It boils down to greed and apathy, and yeah, just the game of politics.
Yeah. And then so you have that, and then I was thinking, so like maybe a couple years ago, because I'm learning as I live here about how things are affected. And so I was a long time, like several years ago, I would think, okay, I'm not going to eat farmed salmon, and I'm only going to eat wild salmon. And then now I'm here and I'm like, I'm not eating salmon. Like I'm not going to eat any wild salmon now, because I feel like that's something I can do. That's easy for me to stop doing,
Oh yeah.
and I'm
Yep.
hoping that, you know, that's something I can do, because everyone
It's
feels they
huge.
can't really do anything, but I'm just thinking, well, hopefully I can do that. And then the other day I was thinking, like, why do we need to fish so much herring? Because I heard that there's a huge loss, like a lot of it's thrown away or something. And I was like, that's awful. And then I was looking more into it, and then I was thinking, well, what do they do with all this herring? And I found out a lot of it goes to fish oil that's in pet food.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So then I was like, wow, do I need to figure out like a different pet food for our cat? Because any pet food you look at, one of the main ingredients will be fish oil. They don't say
Mm-hmm.
herring, but I'm just assuming like 90% of it, the time it probably is. So like, what kind of things can people do? Just, everyday things when you're going to grocery shop or talk to friends and let them know about these things. But as a consumer, what can we do to at least not make things worse?
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful question. I think that's really empowering also, because Joanne Baez had a really beautiful quote that was, the antidote to despair is action. And I think if we can all just kind of work together on these small things, these everyday things, that is where you make a really big difference. So when you go to the grocery store, kind of making it a rule, like, okay, I'm going to mindfully choose to not support inorganic in any way. So just
Right.
reading the ingredients, because the pollutants end up in the ocean anyways, and they're altering the whole ocean. So that is one way to shop. Another one is being more mindful of plastic. And if you're like me and you love hummus and carrots, creating your own hummus and not buying the hummus that's in the plastic container, even though it's convenient and it's easier. It's just being more mindful of like, where is
Yeah.
this plastic actually going? Because it's going to ultimately end up in the landfill or in the ocean. And then
Right.
next one is, if there's an opportunity to buy your favorite carrots that are from 2 blocks away or from, I don't know, Mexico, I think choosing a way that I'm going to support the local farmers and I'm going to support using less fossil fuels. So I think that is another one.
Yeah.
New clothes, I think that's huge, of just like buy something that's going to last a really long time, that you're going to love for a really long time, and think about buying things that are from closer to your house rather than from across the ocean, so it's less tanker traffic, because that, as we know, that's affecting everything. It's noisy, it's polluting, it's using copious amounts of fossil fuels. So I think that makes a really big difference. I personally think that eating animal products has contributed greatly to a lot of the suffering in this world and just the waste. And I think in your choice to stop eating salmon, I think that that is fundamental, because whether it's the wild salmon, that we can live without salmon, we can eat other things, whereas
Yeah.
the southern resident orcas, they don't have anything else on their menu but salmon, and there's scarcely enough for them to survive, and there's only 72 left, and 70 is, that's the point when they're almost functionally extinct. We're two away. So taking one for the team and just like, all right, I don't
Yeah.
need to eat salmon, I'll eat another way, I'll eat another food that will give me the omegas and the protein that I need. And then the farm salmon is just, I mean, it's an abomination. It's full on poisoned
Yeah.
zombie fish. It's,
Yeah.
and you're also supporting the herring by not eating farmed salmon, because the farmed salmon are being fed herring. And
Yeah.
so that's another way to shut that down. And then just gently living these principles and not preaching them, I think it goes further than standing and saying, oh, you're doing that wrong, because then people feel kind of shamed and they don't want to
Exactly.
change. So, and
Yeah.
we're trying our best. None of us want to hurt this world. It's just the more we know, the more we can make beautiful changes, and the less we know, like, then we have less to work with. So just these little things. I think also taking the plane less, finding alternative ways to travel. And yeah, it's just these daily things that I think make a huge difference. And then the last one is reach out to your elected officials and write them letters. And I know it sounds old school and it's time consuming, but a handwritten letter is so potent when whomever reads it, whether it's Governor Jay Inslee of Washington, or if it's the Prime Minister, or if it's John Horgan, or whomever it is, they're going to read that and be like, well, there's this constituent who is maybe going to be voting for me and they want me to do this. And I think that it goes further than we know. And so I think just those little actions, when we're all doing them together, are no longer little, they're large.
They are. And I love all those recommendations that you gave us, especially the part about not being, you know, like shaming people or lecturing people, because anytime we're judging others or really extreme in our thinking, which we need extreme thinkers, we need people that take extreme action, because that helps that balance of the other side, right? But at the same time, it can be hard for people to listen to us if we're too extreme. People will shut you out. It's just too much for them. They don't want to deal with it, you know?
Right.
So it's important for people to feel they can do small things. And like you said, once you find out about something, once you're aware of something, then it's hard to be like, oh, I'm going to still buy salmon, even though I know everything going on with it. Like, because you just wouldn't feel right after knowing certain things. You just have to change little things in your life little by little. Once you have more information, once you have a greater understanding of how things are. And the other thing I feel is like, people think we're so used to convenience now, cheap and convenient and fast. Like, that seems to be like a value, but I feel like we need to kind of reevaluate what is important and what our values are. Like, I feel like I am willing to pay a little extra for, I have no problem paying extra for organic. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care if I can find something cheaper with chemicals. Like, I don't want that. And I see the value, and I see the value in maybe spending a little extra money for cleaning products and detergents that aren't going to ruin the ocean
Mm-hmm.
and ruin the environment. And going to those local stores, and it takes a little more time or a little more effort sometimes to seek out products or things that are eco-friendly or fair trade, etc. Right? Those are choices we make, and I just feel good about myself when I make that little extra effort. I don't feel like it's inconvenience, but a lot of people do feel like that. Well, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't care. Like, I just need to shop, I need to get this done. I don't want to buy those pants because even though they're great for the environment, they were made by someone who's going to be supporting a whole village now possibly, and it's some kind of sustainable crop that they used, etc. There are still people that are going to say, well, I want that $10 pants that's on sale that they're going to fly me from China from Amazon. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, but like you said, when you start really thinking about traveling, well, you can think about your products traveling as well. Do my products really need to travel that far for
Amen.
me? Right? But it is hard when you feel passionate about it to keep your mouth shut sometimes, right? Like, especially around, people you're close to, sometimes you have to decide, like, is this the right time to say something, or should I just let it go?
Yeah.
Um, do you feel like that too?
Well, I mean, in my life, what I've watched is some of the most amazing people in my life. They have inspired me by what they do and not
Yeah.
what they say. And
Yeah.
you can look at many different people, even in history, and you kind of watch how they live and how they conduct themselves day to day, not how they act when they're in an interview or how they act on their best, but just how are they living their life. And you look at some of the greats, you look at Thich Nhat Hanh, or you look at the Dalai Lama, or and like, how are you actually living your life? And they're pretty gentle, compassionate, non-judging, because they're looking at their own self. They're like, man, I have so much that I can heal within myself. I'm just going to start here. And people are going to do what they do. But then when you work
Yeah.
on yourself, I think it inspires other people. Whoa, huh? So what's up with you never eating salmon? Like, what is that about? And then you gently explain, well, because I don't need it and the orcas do. And
Yeah.
it's just a decision I made. And I think in that way, without the judgment or the shame, people are left to kind of make decisions more freely with more heart. Like, oh, well, I don't want to hurt this. I don't want to hurt the orcas also. And then it's just kind of more, it's from a place of heart, not a place of embarrassment or feeling bad, which I don't think really changes things. I think love's what really changes things, love and connectedness and togetherness. So
Yeah.
that's my thought on that.
Yeah. You're such a gentle soul. I love it. It's like,
Oh,
yeah, because it's really, to be non-judgmental and to really be okay with people's decisions and choices is can be so hard. And to get to that place where you're like, well, I'm doing my best, I'm going to take care of what I can from, from a personal place, and figure out my next steps, and figure out what I can do, or figure out how to be better and all of these things, and just let everyone else around me be who they are, and that's totally okay. Like, if we were all like that, that would be huge, right? Like, because our society's so into controlling us through the shame
yeah.
and telling us you're good, you're bad, and then we want to please people, and then we betray ourselves to please others, and it's not coming from our heart, like you said, because we felt bad and felt like we had to do something or else be punished or feel bad about ourselves. And so coming to that place where you're like, I want to do good, and if others around me want to do good, that's great, but it's their free will, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay with that free will that people have. To be okay with that is really actually not easy. I don't think. I mean, because you can't force yourself to be like that. Like, you either are or you aren't. Like, it's a way of being that I think the more you work on yourself, the more it happens naturally as a process, I think, inside us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think bit by bit, like, you just practice, just like if you want to get really strong or be able to do a really special yoga pose, like the first time you try it, it may not work out because you're not strong enough, but you keep working at it. And with kind of the compassion and the patience of like, I'll get there. I just need to breathe. I need to make space for it. And I think it's the everyday little practice of the little things we do. Those are the big things.
Yeah. And I feel like with the COVID, I'm wondering now that we have more time to reflect and the days just kind of, a lot of people have described it as like the days kind of blend into each other. And
Yes.
I'm wondering if people are feeling that they can enjoy the simple things a little more now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been such an amalgam of different feelings because there's terror and there's fear and there's death and there's sickness. And then there's also, we're all kind of collectively cocooning with the people we live with. And there's not really a lot of choice. It's like, well, okay, here we go. What can I do with this? Can I make this special and beautiful to the best that I can? All right, I'll try, because what other alternative is there? And so I think we're all kind of in this cocoon collectively where we're all really looking at our baggage and we're really looking at, so this is how I live life, and the things we want to do that we can't do. And that's also a reflection of like, I wonder what that's about. And it's a time of, I think we're all traumatized together, and I think we're all resting together, and I think we're all healing together, and we're looking around at the world and we're like, does it really need to go back to how it was, with our priority to just do so much and no priority on just being? Is that
Yeah,
really a healthy, sustainable way to live as humans? But our world, like our whole planet, is taking a big breath. All the animals, the ocean, the air, everything's like, thank goodness that the humans are taking a break right now, because it means that everything can take a break right now.
absolutely. And with all of this that's been happening, because you're on the islands, are you still diving, and have you noticed a difference?
Oh my goodness, it's humongous. There's the din of the boat traffic is reduced, I would say, by 80%.
That's
It's
great.
absolutely incredible. Yeah, it's, and the flight, like the amount of planes and jets and helicopters that are normally zooming overhead because of people coming to and fro. It's just this pure quiet. I can hear the birds, I can hear the
Yeah.
frogs, I can hear the crickets. The eagles don't have to worry about some ridiculous plane in the way. It's just a totally different vibe. And I feel like for the orcas, specifically the southern resident orcas that are looking for their salmon in the water, this is probably a beautiful reprieve where they can actually hear themselves think, hear each other communicate, and hear the shimmering scales of the salmon they're looking for.
Yeah, that's a great image. Have you seen more South resident orcas now that COVID is, stopped so much traffic?
Well, yeah, see, that's the interesting thing, is that because the salmon numbers are so incredibly low right now, it's kind of changed the balance. Everything's kind of out of whack, where normally the southern residents would absolutely be here right by now, but right now they're just kind of in like this dire mode of looking for salmon anywhere. So they were actually, part of the southern resident orcas K-pod was spotted in Northern California last week, which is random. It's part of their territory, but it's really, really far,
Uh-huh.
because they're normally here in the Salish Sea and around Vancouver Island. So it's, everything's a little strange there. But to answer your question a little more eloquently, for the big killer whales, the orcas that are mammal eaters, I think this is a time where they are thriving because they can hear their prey, and they're just like, they're at all you can eat buffet right now, eating pinnipeds and porpoises, and they're just like, they are thriving, which is pretty incredible to see.
Yeah. I don't know if, I mean, I feel like I really hope things will change. And I do feel like we feel so busy all the time. We have to be going to and from places all the time. I really hope they can slow things down for that, for the ferries and all those things. I mean, I know that people have to take them for work and things like that, but it would be just so great if they can find a solution to reduce it just a little, like when you try to, because you kind of said you're like the middleman, and are you approaching politicians and people like that, or what is your approach when it comes to that?
Yeah, so we have definitely been really working hard to cajole Governor Jay Inslee, who has the political leverage to breach the lower four Snake River dams as soon as humanly possible in 2020. And so that's been one of our hugest campaigns, is galvanizing everyone that we can reach to act together, write him and call him and email him and reach out to him and say, please, will you breach these dams, and give the reasons. They're killing 8 million salmon a year. They're driving orcas, the southern resident orcas, and Chinook salmon to extinction. This is going to be humongous, and we can stop this. And so most definitely we've been reaching out to him, but also on the Canadian side, there's definitely Bernadette Jordan, and working to educate as many people as possible to reach out to the elected officials, saying we are against the herring fishing right now. We want it to also stop during COVID-19. We want a break. And I think so many people are more aware and cognizant of this now than ever before, which is really uplifting. And I think when you said, I hope it doesn't go back to what it was, I think we have more power than we think in kind of directing that and just deciding, you know what, I don't personally want it to go back to that. So I'm not going to buy the thing on Amazon Prime, and I'm not going to go on that trip, and I'm going to just like chill and use less and stay kind of slow right now, because I want the world to still be in that pause. And so I feel like we have more power than we think, especially when we all work together.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, like, so you have different people that are part of your group. And so can you give us just a little insight, like what a normal meeting would be? Like who are you meeting with? Because you have scientists and you have artists and you have people doing documentaries. And so what kind of meetings do you have? Like what kind of decisions are being made today, or what projects today?
Okay, yeah. So within PNW Protectors, we have such an amazing group. The co-founder, who's my husband, his name is Sai Scammell, and he's kind of like the direction guru. He's kind of like, he has the vision. He's like, you know what, let's go this way. Let's do this. So he's kind of like, it almost feels like he's helping make a lot of the awesome decisions and direct where it goes with fluid grace and articulate movement. And then we have this amazing person named Gloria Pancrazzi. She's just an absolute legend, and she is one of the great storytellers. So we work with her, and then we work with Alexandra Johnson and Maria Nangle, and then Tori Obermeyer and Elena. So we have those are the two teams that are on that are creating their own documentaries, but we work with them to create these bigger calls to action, because we can reach more people, because they have their own kind of followings. So we work together, but then we also work together on these calls, because we're creating a pinniped documentary together with some scientists who are our friends. They're not on the team, but they're just dear friends who want to work with us. And so we're going to try to create a documentary all together, raising awareness about sea lions and seals, and preventing the culling, because there's a outrageous lie running around that salmon numbers are dwindling because of the pinnipeds.
Really?
And yeah, and it's pretty barbaric, and it's a little bit, it gets pretty dark. Like definitely it's intense. So we are going to try to all work together, use everyone's talents, and create a little documentary and share that with the public, that look at these amazing beings, look how important and integral they are to the ecosystem, but look at these sentient beings. Like we have no place to play God and decide who dies and who lives. And if anything needs to step back, it's humans.
Yeah.
And so that is our next project that's pretty big, and we've all just been having talks about that, sharing ideas, and Gloria's been writing out the story with Maria, and then Alex and Gary Sutton and Tasley Shaw, they have amazing footage, and Joe Gatos, he is a scientist. We're going to ask him about the scientific facts. So it's going to kind of be this awesome orchestrated piece where everyone is going to lend what they're good at to share, to make a good story.
Wow, that's exciting. It's great that you're raising awareness about all these things, because if there aren't people out there like you doing that, nobody knows. It's just so easy for people to hide stuff, and it goes unseen or unnoticed, or So thank you so much for taking this. It's a big responsibility, in a way, like to take this on. And I'm looking forward to the documentaries that are coming out. I think those are going to be really cool.
I know.
And
I'm excited too. I'm really excited for those. And I just feel like there's two quotes. There's a quote by Jacques Cousteau, who I think everyone knows, but he's just like, people will protect that which they love. And I
yeah,
feel like that's, as humans, our superpower. We're bad at a lot of things. We really are. We're sloppy and we're gross. But what we're phenomenal at is that when we love something, we are unstoppable. And so if we all band together and we all collectively love whatever it is, let's say in this case, it's the southern resident orcas, and we all love them and we all want to protect them. That's how you breach dams. That's how you move mountains. That's how it's done. And there's the quote by Thomas Jefferson that one person with courage is a majority. Well, if we all have courage to do this, that's how you make huge changes. So that's what I'm excited about regarding these documentaries and even what you're doing. You're a storyteller and you're sharing this and you're helping to raise the awareness, and that's huge.
yeah, I hope that people really will take interest in this and see it as important. And there's just so much out there right now that needs attention and needs our love, like you mentioned. And I love that quote because I feel like it's kind of like the quote that humans need right now for humanity, for the planet, for everything going on. And like you said, that's also what can actually help people feel hopeful again,
Mm-hmm.
is that with this thought of being able to have an impact, and with love and with care and awareness, that we can have impact, and I like that you're so optimistic, because I think we need that right now. We need to feel optimistic about it, because so much is happening. So much could go in either direction, and we really need it to go in the right direction. And so having people that are more gentle about it, like the way you're doing it, I think is great. And
Thank you.
yeah, so thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about this. And once this is out, I really hope people will listen and be just as excited about what you're doing and what's happening as I am.
Oh yeah. I'm really proud of you for what you're doing. I think you're spreading awareness and you're raising kind of the vibration. I think that your work is important, and you listen to spirit and you're running with it. And I think that there's magic to what you're doing. And I'm really honored that you invited me onto your podcast today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And hopefully I'll meet you in person one day.
I know, I would love that. Maybe we can go free diving. I would love that.
Yeah, you'll have to teach me.
I think you already know how. You're a mammal. You know how to hold your breath.
I can. Yes, I can. In a very thick dry suit, I guess.
Yeah, we'll just be like seals. We'll wear thick wetsuits with hoods, and we'll swim around like the seals.
Sounds awesome. As long as we're not, mistaken for one.
I don't think no, the orcas are too smart. They would
Yeah,
just
I
use their
figured.
echolocation and be like, oh no, those are two beautiful souls. I won't hurt them.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Snow.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I'm so very grateful. I hope you have a really beautiful weekend, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye.